And we are back with John Parr. So, on the back of your tour with Toto, at the end of that tour, David Foster asks you to write and record a song for the cult classic movie St. Elmo's Fire. What was the process of writing a song like that?
Toto brought me up to speed a little bit with David. Fortunately, I didn't know too much about his incredible track record, but Toto briefed me a bit. So I went forearmed. When I arrived at this little studio, it's called the Lighthouse. There's just David there. There were just tapes everywhere and CDs. He was exhausted. And he was doing his first movie that he was a composer of, but he was also simultaneously doing a soundtrack album with 10 original songs, with 10 original artists. It's like lunacy, really. So when I got there, he said to me, look, John, I know I've asked you to write, but will you sing this? And he played me this song, and it was like, not great. And I said, I really think we could do better. And he said, I'm exhausted, man. Please just sing. I said, let's just have an hour. He said, okay. So we went in the control room. There was just like a piano there and a drum machine. And we wrote a song, probably 10 minutes. I thought, wow, this is great. He said, we can do better. I thought, okay. So off we go. Another 10 minutes. Wow, this is eager as we can do better. Third time in, St. Elmo's Fire. Got the great tune, got it all done, probably in a couple of hours. And I was due to come in and sing it the next day. But I could not get inspired by the text of the movie. I came from the north of England. I left school at 15. This was a movie about, Silver Spoon kids, collegiate thing, completely out of my comfort zone. So David said, look, there's nothing to do with the movie. I'm going to show you this little videotape of a local news station in Vancouver, David's hometown. But there was this film of this kid, he said, and this kid came in the studio a couple of weeks ago, and he really inspired me. So he puts the video cassette in, and as this guy comes up on screen, like I am now, you can just see him kind of from the waist up. And he's a beautiful-looking young guy, looked like a young Kennedy. And I realized very quickly that he's in a wheelchair. And he says, 2 years ago, I was living the life. And then I had a car crash and broke my back. And he said, I realized you break your arm, you break your leg, you're in a cast for 8 weeks. You break this one in your back and you're in a chair for the rest of your life. He said, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to get in this chair and I'm going to wheel it around the world on the Man in Motion tour. And then the video starts running in the TV station of this like truck, just an old truck with a spare wheelchair on the front. And it says, Rick Hansen, Man in Motion, World Tour. Man, the goosebumps on my neck. So, wow, I'm going to write this story. So I went back to the hotel and I wrote the story of what I imagined, because he was only 2 months in. This was going to take 2 years. So I wrote the lyric about what I imagined his journey would be like. But I knew the film company were going to kick it. So I made it so that when I'm talking about the pair of wheels, they're going to think it's Demi Moore's Jeep. For once in his life, a man has his time. They think that's when Emilio gets the girl. But it's entirely about a guy wheeling across a desert, up a mountainside. And St. Elmo's Fire, this freak of nature burning in the sky. And he's wheeling to the embodiment of his dream. I came in the next day and David said, you're crazy. They're never going to swallow it. And I said, and I want to call it Man in Motion. And he went, they'll never swallow it. The beauty was the film was being dubbed on the Monday, so they had no time. So the song just went bosh into the, never, if you look in the movie, it's just in sections. It's never in its entirety. But Rick went on to do the prophecy. He wheeled around the world 2 years, 2 months and 2 days, raised 18 million for spinal research. And every time I sing that song, I tell the story. We're now at $2.75 billion raised for the Rick Hansen Foundation. Not all from St. Elmo's Fire. We just helped it along. It's the theme tune, but some great people. And, you know, the aim is that the wheelchair will end up in a museum and nobody will ever be in one. That was my little part.
That's amazing. So why do you think that particular song took off like it did? Was it because of the Because part of it seems like the movie would give it the boost, but at the same point in time, the message is so very important.
It's a funny thing with songs. I liken it to if you've ever built a bonfire in the garden, you've got all your paper and everything, and you keep lighting matches and it just won't go. And then suddenly it catches light and poof. Now that match and that paper was that movie, and the Brat Pack being the darlings of the day. But that movie came and went pretty quickly. It only became a cult thing in the last few years. But I can remember going to radio stations in England, and they'd go, we don't know whether to put it on the playlist, but then we saw you and Tina together, and we thought it was interesting. I stopped Tina getting to #1 with We Don't Need Another Hero, so now we've stopped again. So it became a great story, but that's how kind of faint-hearted it was. But in America, it obviously was straight on the radio. But here we are 30-odd years later, and, people get married to it. People live their, moments in their lives.
Did you ever get to meet I know that, well, let me back up for a second. So the song gets nominated for a Grammy. Did you, at any point in time, end up meeting the actual cast of the film? Or
Yes. Yeah, they're it's not one of those where they use footage from the film alone. They actually rebuilt the St. Elmo's Fire bar after it had been taken down for them. But they rebuilt it, and the whole cast came, and we shot the bar with me playing in the bar.
So coming off that, like you said, you toured with Tina Turner on the Private Dancer tour. What do you remember most about that tour?
I watched every show. I would go on, do my set, get changed, wait for the lights to go down, then I'd sneak out and watch every show and the master. So I was just learning at the knee of the master. She was really elevated to those shows very quickly. When I was booked to do that Private Dancer tour, Tina was still honoring corporate gigs at Holiday Inns for corporations and whatever, traveling in the truck with a van. And within 3 months, she's on her own jet, playing to 20,000 people.
When you get the opportunity, because you've also done songs for other movies, when you get the opportunity to do a gig like that, do they give you like the plot line of the movie ahead of time? What do they give you ahead of time to kind of give you some guidance or inspiration so you're not just writing out of thin air?
I always like to get with the director if I can. And if they just tell me the story, they're just so full of it themselves. And I get sometimes little bits that I feel I'm the sixth horse on the team. I'm the guy that's going to try and, tell that story in one song. That's why they call me Mr. Soundtrack for a bit, because I did 10 of these movies back, in 2 years. I remember with The Running Man, they just took me to the preview theater and they just showed me the rough cut. And halfway through the movie, I got it.
I know you've got new music on the horizon. Tell us about that.
I got a record that's kind of old school, but kind of new school. It's real songs, real people playing on it. I'm about 3/4 of the way off finishing it. We just made a movie about the making of, and it's joyous.
So where can our audience go to follow you now?
johnparr.net is the website. It's a pretty good website. Shows a lot of, what I'm up to, what I've been doing with the American military. I've been over in America doing a lot for the USO and for USA Cares. I made an album with all the money going to those charities.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, John Parr.
God bless you, David. This has been a lovely hour.